Hey, everybody, and welcome back yet again to the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. And if you don't just go straight, to YouTube, I know you have that notification. You of course you subscribe, you hit that bell, so whenever a video comes out, you come right here. But if you don't, if you did, and you went to the dynastyleaguefootball.com to get here, how pretty is that?
Oh, it's looking nice.
I mean, it's only been like 6 years. Maybe it was time for actually, I think they redid it like 2, 3 years ago already. So that's how determined they are to be the best they can for all of you. I looked right
Mhm.
into the camera and I'm pointing right into the camera for that one. Usually I look at the screen and point to the screen. No, right into the camera because it's for you. Not for
It
you, for you.
it looks nice, and you'll see a difference in when I throw the screenshots up here of the trades. You see
Yep.
it there's a difference.
But also before we get started, speaking of just looking different because of milestones, and I need to point out how good of a friend I am because everyone, it was Addison's birthday recently.
Mhm.
He is a spry 21 years old. Congratulations. How was your first beer? Was it great?
It was horrendous. That was terrible.
Not gonna lie, my first beer was so I was young and someone gave me an actual Budweiser and it stopped me from drinking beer for the next 20 years.
That was me with Miller Lite, but yeah.
Ugh. But okay, well, happy birthday. And I want you to know that the second I saw that it was your birthday, I was mad at myself for not knowing it beforehand because we've been friends for years, so my bad. But also, like, I'm like, all right, what can I do? What ridiculousness can I do? And then I'm like, no, you know what? Clearly, I'm going to talk about it and I'm going to drag it out to make this conversation go as long as I can. Singing crossed my mind. I
No.
was gonna we have a bunch of construction paper upstairs. I was gonna like make color confetti. Like I was gonna go big. But since you can vote, no, that's 18. You can drink, you can do all these things legally now. You're a grown up. I'm gonna treat you like one and just say happy birthday.
Thank you, because I coulda edited out anything that you did anyway.
That would be so mean.
I
Still
have
would have
that
been
now.
worth it.
Yep.
Still would have been worth it. But okay, so we're talking about quarterbacks today, and Stroud and Fields were what brought this up. But we're going to talk about more than just them because there's a lot of weirdness going on. Thankfully, our top tier is acting top tier, and
Mhm.
we even have a lot of that next tier acting like that next tier.
Mhm.
And it gets a little weird. I'll
Yep.
do the fingers. It gets weird. Okay, and let's talk at what was at least for me, at the bottom of that second tier, I I slid in Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields at the bottom of that second tier.
Right.
Trevor Lawrence is not playing like he belongs anywhere near that second tier. I
Yep.
hate it. I hate it. And like the thing is, like week one, I felt great about it, especially because Calvin Ridley got like 16 targets and it was great.
Yeah.
And that has not really happened since. Before we get into the trades, I'm going to ask you, I guess let's simplify it. Is Trevor Lawrence a first round startup pick for you in a super flex league?
Yes. Yeah, he's still a top 10 dynasty quarterback for me because he is still 23. He's still Trevor Lawrence. And we saw what he could do at the end of last season, which honestly, if you look at what happened at the beginning of last season, it was relatively ish similar to what he's doing now. I mean, he threw a few more touchdowns through the first 4 weeks last year, but he did not have anything over really 270 yards. He actually had a game under 200 yards, threw a couple picks through 4 weeks. Like his breakout didn't really occur until like week 9 last year.
Yeah.
And we were just hoping that that inconsistency would alleviate itself in year 3, year 2 with Doug Peterson. You add Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk is still there. Zay Jones is still there. ETN's another year away from injury. And it just hasn't happened yet. But at the same time, there are other things like people have been quoting out that he's number 1 in PFF and like big time throws, and then his receivers are just not catching balls. Like I think his receivers lead the league in balls dropped, I think, or big play balls that have been dropped. So it's like Trevor Lawrence himself seems to still be playing well individually, like him as a
Yeah.
quarterback seems to be doing well. It's just the rest of him around him doesn't seem to be helping him out all too much. So he's still a top 10 for me and still a first round super flex asset.
So let's look at these trades and see how we feel about it. 12-team superflex, Trevor Lawrence for Tua Tagovailoa and Tank Dell. So this is Tua for Trevor straight up.
Hey, Tank is good.
Yeah.
You can't throw him out.
Well, okay. Trevor Lawrence coming in at 853, Tua 702, Tank 57.
Yeah, but that 57 is going to rise up in October ADP.
Yeah, it will. But still, like, okay, but then let me ask you the question. How far away for you are Trevor and Tua?
Tua's ahead of Trevor. Tua is 2 spots ahead of Trevor. So I have it as like the top 7 was basically the same as what it was top 6 or 7 were the same as what it was last year. The big 3, then you add in Burrow, Hurts, Lamar. So there's your top 6. Tua gets thrown into the conversation now. Lawrence is still up in there. CJ Stroud is up in there, and Anthony Richardson is up in there as well too. So those are like the next 4 that kind of round out your top 10. So I would have Tua over Trevor Lawrence, but they're 1 or 2 quarterback spots apart.
Yeah, they're pretty close for me as well. Like at this point, like next to each other. So here's my thing. If we look back 2 years from now, 3 years from now, of course, these are both very young quarterbacks and will hopefully be starting for many, many more years than 3, 4 years from now. But like if we looked back and like this is probably well, if we called this Tua's best season, would you be super shocked by that?
No, but he's also pacing for what, like 7,000 yards or something like that. But no, I wouldn't be surprised if it was his best season. It's like you kind of have what feels like been peak Tyreek Hill for the past 2 or 3 years, but you're still getting peak Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, year 2 in Mike McDaniel's offense, a run game that's just unstoppable.
Yeah.
It might be to his best year. Not to say that he can't get continually like
Still be
90 to
good.
95%
Absolutely.
of
Yeah.
that every year, but it could be his career season.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at 24.5 points per game. Trevor Lawrence averaging about 17. Oh, that's sad. Um, didn't think it was that far apart. But yeah, and I've always been a Tua guy, but I've always, also loved Trevor Lawrence. It's tough. I'm going to put them next to each other. At this point, I think I put Tua above him for the pure level of floor
Mm.
with their offenses they're in. Like, I still believe that Trevor Lawrence has the higher ceiling. He's more mobile than Tua is. I think he has more arm talent than Tua does. I mean, honestly, that's why I probably just don't. Actually, you know what? That's a lie. Give me a little bit, like, this is fine. Give me a little bit on top of Tua to get away from Lawrence, and I do it pretty easily. But also,
Well,
the other way around, like, if I'm
mhm.
rebuilding, I would do this.
I don't really see how it's not the Tua side. Like if Tua and Trevor Lawrence are both top 10 like you really still have to believe that Tua's gonna is not Tua. Like if he has a concussion next week, then that's an issue.
All I
Like you
can
still have
say
to be holding
is
on to that.
I have a tanking team with Trevor Lawrence on it, and I'm very easily still in the running for the 101. If
Oh
I
yeah.
had Tua on that team, I would not so easily be in the running for the 101.
But as a rebuilding team, I mean, the quarterback age is a wash
Of course,
basically,
yeah,
and
25-year-old quarterback is what you want. Yeah,
then you get a free Tank Dell. It's
free
the
tank.
to me the tank it's Tank Dell. I would take whatever side Tank Dell is on. If he was on with Trevor Lawrence, give me Lawrence and Tank because that's how neck and neck Tua and Trevor Lawrence are to me. So it's one of those trades where it's like whatever side's the plus on, that's the side that I'm taking.
This next one's going to be interesting because we're going to talk some Devi.
Mm.
So since there is no Devi in the analyzer, which means there's no Devi in the finder, which means Addison, you did some work. You
Well, it says that like in the finder, it says unknown asset or something
yeah.
like that. So I just clicked on what the trade was to see what that unknown asset was, and it said it was Drake May. So
You put in more effort than I would have, so thank you.
you're welcome.
So the trade is Trevor Lawrence for Drake May and Jordan Love. So you're turning Trevor Lawrence into 2 starting quarterbacks next year. In case whoever watching, listening, whatever, Drake May is the number 2 quarterback at this point coming into next year's draft class. Again, he still has to, the season has to keep going. He has to not be terrible. He has to declare, and there's still a lot of time. But with Devi, this is how you play it, right? We're assuming that he's going to be the QB2 in this class because Caleb.
Yeah. And top 3 or 4 pick in Superflex next year.
Jordan Love right now is scoring a lot. I was just going to cut it off there. He is points per game QB5 at 24.3 points per game. Again, this is trade addict scoring. We do a little more extra points for yards than most people because I like points. So he's scoring really well. Is he QB5? No. But he's scoring like it, and that's really what matters, right?
It's nice.
So like we were saying before, you can take Trevor Lawrence, who we've said many, many times how much we like. Get Drake May, who's going to probably walk in as a top 14-ish. Usually the top tiered rookie QBs are in that 14, 15, 16 area.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Jordan Love, who honestly I think is going to finish around there too by the end of the season. So you are hedging against Trevor Lawrence a little bit, because if he drops to QB 10, QB 11, would you rather have the QB 11 or the 14 and 15? Like I'm down for this. Like, it's fun. I don't like it, but I think it's fun. Like, if I have a team that's doing poorly and I feel like shaking things up just because I'm bored, I would do this. I would send away Trevor Lawrence for this.
To me, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence on this. I think there's too much unknown still with the Jordan Love and the Drake May side. And like Jordan Love, I think, is doing well. I think a lot of it's being built on the efficiency that he's having with touchdowns right now. So it feels like it's one of those assets that, like, this is a trade where you're moving an asset that seems to be almost at his ceiling right now in terms of he's like overly producing because he's being overly touchdown efficient. And then you're moving it to an asset who is just in all facets of the game better. He's just underperforming,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's one of the, and then in order to do that, you're giving a highly hopeful and anticipated and highly potentialed asset in Drake May or some other top 5 rookie or something like that next year if you want to swap out May. To me, I'm just taking Trevor Lawrence. This is a good trade, I think, in terms of what I would try to do if I wanted to go acquire Lawrence, while his value seems to be down right now.
I'm ready to talk about Justin Fields because it's been a start of a season for Justin Fields. And then he goes and throws for 355 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Denver defense.
Don't care.
There's an asterisk on that performance.
What would we be saying if he did poorly against Denver's defense?
Oh, it'd be over.
So we expect him to do very well against a bad defense.
Right.
So there's no asterisk. He did what he should have done.
Well, yeah,
and he did it a lot.
But we can't overweight that by saying that, like, oh, Justin Fields is developing, he's learning.
Oh, no, we're not like, oh, he's back, he's the guy now. Like, no. But like, again, like, he did what he should have. Like, no, like, he did more than he should have done. You don't expect a bad quarterback to still go for 355 and 4, even against the Denver defense.
We'll find out this week because they play Zach Wilson. So
fair point. Okay. So as of right now, at least it looked like Justin Fields is capable of having a very good NFL game on top of a good fantasy game. So I'm curious to know how reassured you feel and all of this. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Is Justin Fields a first-round startup pick for you in Superflex?
Nope. This was the game that I was waiting for to happen to then sell Justin Fields, to find somebody in my league, if I had Justin Fields, and say, look, he's back. Look what he just did. Take him.
Okay, so before we get on to the real trades, what would you need to be able to feel good about trading away Justin Fields?
I just want to pivot to another quarterback that's in that like 9 through 13 or 14 range. Like there's both of these trades are examples of that. But if you could pivot to any other kind of quarterback who is producing now, or has at least produced in the past, or we think are going to produce in the future very well, and has more stability in terms of like can actually probably have a job next year. Because that's what I'm concerned about with Justin Fields is that like he
Even if
provided
he okay,
all
if the
that in
dude's
Arizona.
not in Chicago, he's starting somewhere. Let's be honest. I get that the
Maybe
difference between like last 2 years ago with the Eagles was like they have the draft capital to replace Justin Fields was the Eagles were winning. You know, Bears aren't really winning, but like
this
are
could
they
be like a Marcus Mariota situation. Like Mariota got replaced and dumped, and then he had half of a season last year with the Falcons, but it took 2 years after he got replaced to do that.
see the reason I'm good with like this isn't Trey Lance to me. This isn't he's gonna get traded for nothing to be someone's backup. To me, if Fields goes somewhere, even just like his draft capital and the fact of what he's shown enough of on the field, I feel like he's going in to compete at least. Like maybe not get handed a job, but like compete for a starting job. Like I don't think he goes and gets taken in by the Ravens, and like
Sure. But I
uh,
don't want a quarterback that I think might have a chance to compete at a like when
at
you
this
have a
price, I
quarterback at
get
Justin
it,
Fields' level.
but like imagine Fields going to Atlanta.
Yeah, that would probably be really fun.
All right, so let's talk about these trades then and see how we feel about it. 12-team superflex. The first trade we have is Justin Fields and Terrace Marshall. Sure. For Kirk Cousins, Joe Mixon, and Trey Palmer. Justin Fields in at 489, Terrace Marshall in at 8 for a total of 498. Kirk Cousins 303, Joe Mixon 225, Trey Palmer 14 for a total of 542. So we have pretty much like a 2-for-1 here. And again, you're overpaying for the more valuable asset. Is this something that you would feel good about if you had Justin Fields on your team, getting Cousins and Mixon? I gotta be honest, I just like Trey Palmer.
Yeah, Trey Palmer is fun. Yeah. But if you kind of want to wash him and Terrace Marshall out, I get it to make this just kind of you're adding Mixon to Cousins to go get Fields.
Yeah,
This is what I was talking about, where I just kind of I want to move Fields off for another quarterback that is producing now that I feel comfortable is going to have a job in the future. And
yeah. We
you're
also don't know where Kirk Cousins' job's going to be by the end of this season. Seems like.
I bet you if he's not on the Vikings, he's getting traded somewhere. Or like I am much more confident in the fact that Kirk Cousins is an NFL starting quarterback than I am Justin Fields is, like over the next 2 to 3 years. And you're getting Joe Mixon on top of it to make this deal, which Mixon hasn't necessarily produced yet, but he hasn't scored touchdowns. So once he finds the end zone and that Bengals offense hopefully gets better after Burrow gets healthy, I think Mixon's a good buy low right now. But yeah, this is mainly this trade to me is mainly just moving off of Fields over to Kirk Cousins, who is producing wonderfully for fantasy minus last week. And you get an RB2 out of it.
I think this is one of those things where if it were like anyone almost priced around Joe Mixon, I would feel better about it because you're absolutely right. Like Kirk Cousins is my most owned quarterback. Him and Tua are weirdly on a lot of my teams. Like I have them both as my QBs, but yeah, like if this were Aaron Jones instead,
Aaron Jones,
I would pay
James
so much
Cook,
more.
or yeah, any one of those kind of guys. I mean, I like Mixon as well too, but it does if you want to replace that name with
Yeah,
whoever
but
the Cousins manager has at running back that's at that level, perfect.
yeah, then I'm down for this move because you are A, insulated in value, like Addison said, B, insulated in points because if Justin Fields starts doing well and Kirk Cousins does a little not as well, it's still probably around the same. Like Kirk Cousins isn't going to bottom out. We know that. So it's a good move for especially for your competing team if you had Justin Fields there. Next trade is Justin Fields for Kyler Murray and Michael Wilson. Justin Fields still in at 489 and Kyler Murray still up at 483. Michael Winslow 21 for a total of 504. So You alluded when you were saying a quarterback that's going to score you points in the future. Is this something you'd be okay with?
This is another one of those. This is Kyler Murray to me is Justin Fields, but better with and more job stability, which
Still
might
get
be
job
weird to
stability?
hear. That's what I was gonna say. It might be weird to hear, but Kyler to me, either he's staying with the Cardinals or he is actually going to go somewhere and play somewhere else. Like I'm not at all concerned about Kyler Murray's like future in the league. I saw somebody talk about on TikTok that after watching Justin Fields up until that Denver game, that he was convinced that Justin Fields was going to be the most athletic T-Mobile worker of all time. And I don't have
He
that
could at
concern.
least get a Verizon or AT&T job. Come on. T-Mobile?
Top of the cell phone company list for Justin Fields. But I don't have that concern with Kyler Murray. Like I think
Fair.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kyler stays in Arizona. If the way that this offense is already producing with Jonathan Gannon as head coach and this new whole kind of coaching scheme, I wouldn't be surprised if Kyler stays.
Why not trade Kyler Wayne just to run the Josh Dobbs machine? It's running
Well,
smooth.
I don't know about that one, but but Kyler to me is a perfect pivot off of Justin Fields, and you're getting Michael Wilson as well, who up in the past 2 weeks I think has done really well. Last week, week 4, did really well, and has showed out. I think he's actually on pace for over 1,000 receiving yards through 4 weeks. So
See, I agree with everything you said. And I guess the risk is really a little if Kyler let's pretend my worst fear is the wrong phrase, but like my most outlandish scenario to me is that they shelve him the entire year and
Mhm.
either, well, I guess they might even be out of the Caleb lottery at this point, but because I know they're
Right now
not.
the Bears have 1 and 2. If the season were to end right now, the Bears have both first and second overall. Arizona's currently sitting at 109. Now, granted, there's like 8 teams that all have a 1-3 record,
Yeah.
but based on like strength of schedule and everything like that, Arizona is not even a top 8 pick.
Right. So the idea of shelving Kyler for Caleb is seemingly out the window, but let's pretend still they just shelve Kyler the entire year. Everything Addison said still stands. Either he's back in Arizona or he's going to a team. Like Kyler isn't bad at football. Not to say Justin Fields is, but we've seen Kyler consistently good on an NFL field.
Mhm.
So if someone is bringing in Kyler, they're bringing in Kyler to be their starter, as opposed to at least what I said, that I still think that Justin Fields gets a chance somewhere else, even if he's not in Chicago for this next coming season. And there's a lot more stability in he's going to be the starter than maybe he'll be the starter.
Right.
All right, let's
Mm.
Joe Burrow.
Joe.
Joe, why? What? Okay, so Joe Burrow playing last week, not this. Joe Burrow playing right now is a terrible idea. 2 weeks ago, I think Joe Burrow was a game time decision on a Monday night, and they decided to play him, which is like the dumbest thing ever. Your stud building block, every good word for a young athlete of a player that you just paid a whole lot of money to could just miss a game. It's fine. But they put him out there while he's hurt, so he's going to get a little bit more hurt because he's playing professional football. And then they put him out again last week and get crushed by the Titans.
Yeah, that was dumb.
Joe Burrow. So I think trades are going to be very, very interesting to look at. And the idea of trading Joe Burrow right now seems like it can be scary. So again, very curious to see these trades you pulled. 12-team Superflex, Joe Burrow for Jordan Love, Devon Achane, and a first. Yeah, first on top. Joe Burrow in at 892, Jordan Love 409, a late 24 first at 228, A-Chain only down at 125, but that's absolutely going to go up.
That's going up hard.
Yeah, they just started the mocks for October yesterday or the day before, so they are absolutely going to go up for a total of 761. So this, as of right now, is still in favor of Joe Burrow. I think I'm still setting this for Burrow, and mostly it's because it's a late first. I've screwed up many, many late first picks, so I'm not going to act like it's the best thing in the world. Jordan Love, we've talked about it. He's good, but he's not what Joe Burrow is, no less what Joe Burrow can still continue to be. And yeah, Achan seems like he's awesome, and it was always the spot that I was thrilled for him to land in. But if it can get me Joe Burrow, I'm going to give up almost pretty much any running back to help me go get Joe Burrow.
Right. Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. This is very similar, I think, to the Jordan Love one for Trevor Lawrence, where it was like the main staple of this is a quarterback in a piece that is overproducing relative to what we think that like how talented he is and stuff, over efficient. You add a late first to that, like you said. I actually like I looked and where that late first is, it's the number 1 point scorer in the league in this league. So very well could be like 10, 11, 12 in 2024, which could be good, could maybe not be good. And then A Chain, yeah, is great. But again, like you said, he's a running back. Even if you want to bump up the value in the analyzer to where he's at like, 250 to 300 or something like that, then that bump alone now gets us to basically where Joe Burrow is, to where it's now like an even trade.
What he's actually worth. Yeah.
Right? Not even mentioning that this is, a good buy low on Joe Burrow that, assuming that he sits and then gets back to being healthy, he's still Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins this year and Joe Mixon. And, I'm doing all of this so easily just to go back up and get another top 5, top 6 dynasty quarterback.
What if, ride this with me, they're tanking for Brock Bowers?
That would be really fun. Or they tank for, they get rid of T. Higgins. Not get rid of him, but they let him
They're
go
not going to
somewhere.
resign. I think I'm past the point of believing they're resigning him, which really just makes me sad.
And then they
So
get
stuff.
another wide, because I mean, like we talked about, Arizona's at 109, since he's at 108 right now.
I mean, oh man, Jamar and Marvin,
Oh, that would be disgusting.
unstoppable.
That'd be so gross.
All right, this next trade isn't gross. Joe Burrow and Deebo Samuel for Josh Allen. Even if Joe Burrow was playing like Joe Burrow, I would do this so easily to go get Josh Allen. Like, don't
I
get
saw
me
this.
wrong. I love Joe Burrow. I firmly believe Joe Burrow is that number 5-ish quarterback. Like, he's up there. He belongs up there. But that's Josh Allen. And Deebo is so that I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, the total values is 1,233 for Burrow and Deebo, and Allen's in at 959. Sure, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw this deal and I thought to myself, I was like, I would have done this deal without knowing that Joe Burrow was going to completely suck for the first month or 2 of the
Yeah.
season. Like, I would have done this deal back in August.
Yep.
To go get Josh Allen. That just shows you kind of like the tier gap differences between Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts, and then Burrow, Herbert, Lamar, Lawrence, all those kind of guys. Like, you got to add somebody like Deebo Samuel, and I'm still willing to even do that. Now, if Deebo was somebody else that I liked, like that, I feel like that's another factor. We're both not big Deebo fans, so maybe that comes into play a little bit here. So if you told me it was a different player,
Christian
that
Watson.
I'd probably still take Josh Allen.
Calvin Ridley.
There you go. See, you start getting into that, like Jordan Addison. Would you
Yeah,
take
that's
Burrow and Addison?
the next player up.
Yeah,
The next
Burrow
wide receiver.
and JSN.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it
Bad,
starts getting more
it
iffy.
gets tough, but yeah, Deebo so easily. All right, next player. Here we go. I'm guessing top 10 quarterback when the new ADP comes out.
Mhm.
CJ Stroud. He is playing very well.
Very well.
Very well. So hold on, let me pull this up real quick. Through the first 4 weeks, filter for quarterbacks. We have CJ Stroud's putting up 21.675 points per game, which sounds pretty good, right? Like that's pretty good.
Mhm.
Now, if I were to say a rookie's first game is rough, you know what? Let's excuse his first game.
Sure.
24.5 points per game. He scored 13 points in that first game, but he's been putting up 25 points per game since then. 20, and it's been average, like it's 25, 23, 24. Like it's not like a roller coaster. It's not like 12 and 30. Like he's playing really, really well. And the thing is, he's not making mistakes, which means he could
Mhm.
still technically get better. Like you know, and while I love Tank Dell and Nico Collins, like they can upgrade their receiving core.
Right.
So
Yeah, they absolutely can.
let me ask you the question I've asked for most of these guys. Is CJ Stroud a first round startup pick for you in a Superflex league?
Yes, he is. He's a top 10 quarterback for me. I actually tweeted out that I would rather have CJ Stroud than Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty, which is probably a super hot take, but that I mean, we're looking to give you a frame of reference on what CJ Stroud is doing right now. He is averaging 300 yards per game over his first 4 games. That is including the week 1 that you said where it was kind of a struggle. I mean, he still had 242, but he didn't throw a touchdown.
Yeah.
But he's averaging 300 yards per game, which is a 17 game pace of 5,100 yards and 26 touchdowns. This is, do you remember what Justin Herbert was doing in his rookie year? Like when it was just like every single week he was just going out there. It was like 300 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's what CJ Stroud is doing, except he did it in September. Stroud or Herbert was doing it in like October to November.
Yeah.
Took him a few weeks to get there because he was still behind Tyrod.
They needed
Stroud,
to. Never mind. Not going
yeah,
to be that
they needed to get Herbert in there sooner and not have a punctured lug situation. But
Yeah.
Stroud he this is a Justin Herbert situation. I would not be surprised if by the end of this season, CJ Stroud is vaulted into that second tier that we've been talking about all day today. The Herbert Lamar tier. I would not be surprised if he's thrown into there. And with Anthony Richardson as well too. The way that he's not only been running, but he's been passing really well. This is a good injection of youth from this class, and CJ Stroud is producing really, really well. And like you said, his situation can only get better because it seems like even though Nico and Tank Dell are playing really well, it seems like they are B or C level wide receivers in the NFL. Like he doesn't have a Chase or a Jefferson or a Lamb or a Waddle or an Amon-Ra. You know, like if they give him one of those, it's oh man, like the ceiling is through the roof for Stroud based on what he's doing right now.
Let's see what it looks like in trades. The first one, okay, more 12-team Superflex. CJ Stroud, caution, Team B is giving up the highest value asset and the most pieces in the deal for Dak Prescott and Chris Godwin. CJ Stroud in at 500. Dak Prescott 538, Chris Godwin 244, total of 782. This would be harder for me if Dak Prescott was playing like he should. Dak Prescott is not playing very well. Chris Godwin, like, man, that Buccaneers offense, what is happening? Like, Baker's good now.
They're kind of good.
Yeah, it's weird. It's would you give up this much to go get CJ Stroud?
Yes,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
because you're gaining like quarterback age. Yes, is kind of relative, but
It's 8 years still.
this is an 8 year gap. You know, and Godwin is also kind of getting up there in age a little bit
I
too.
want you to look at that jersey hanging behind you while you say this.
He's still great, but he's getting up there a little bit in age. We're now the same age as well too. That's kind of funny, but but yeah, I mean, I would take CJ Stroud over Dak Prescott. We're at that point now. I said that I would take him over Trevor Lawrence. I'm definitely taking him over Dak.
Oh,
And
yeah, for sure.
add, I would add Chris Godwin to go get it. Like Godwin is really good, but like he just seems like he's thrown into that big wide receiver 2 tier. It's just a lot of those guys are very similar, kind of replaceable. if CJ Stroud's on the trajectory that he's like is follows the trajectory that he's on right now, like this could look ridiculous in a year or two if this was Justin Herbert for Dak Prescott and Chris Godwin, you know?
Yeah, but like even honestly, if he settles at that QB 10 for a year and change, like if he just, he keeps playing this well and doesn't elevate that much, you still feel good about this next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might feel a little harsh to send right now because we know what Dak Prescott can be, and it took him a little bit. Well, he was injured at the beginning of last year, but he turns back into what he should be. So, and yeah, I think it's a personal thing with Chris Godwin that's making me not want to just say yeah. So I'm just gonna say yes. You're right. I think you do this for Stroud. And I do. It's one of those things where are you going to be sad to have a super young, super good quarterback on your team? No.
Nope.
In 2 weeks, you'll forget what you paid for him, and you move on. You'll be fine. Next one, I'm very curious about this. C.J. Stroud for Kyler Murray in a first. C.J. Stroud at 500, Kyler Murray 483, a mid first coming in at 348 for a total of 831. You have a 22-year-old quarterback we're calling top 10. And then you're like, no, that's not good enough. I want to go trade this for Kyler Murray, who has some things going on because I don't know how else to put all of that in anything short.
That's politically correct.
And then you get a mid first out of it. Like, so you took what became not only insanely valuable, but insanely safe and valuable, and traded it for Kyler Murray in a mid first. And while the analyzer agrees, like this is a move you do to, I'll throw heavy air quotes, cash out on CJ Stroud.
Right.
I don't feel great about it just because of the waiting that's going to need to happen right now. Because let's pretend he does turn it. Like let's do your exercise. Switch out Stroud for Justin Herbert. Do you feel good about Herbert for Kyler in a first? No.
No, I would take Herbert.
So and again, you can't value a player on what he should be worth if he does something. Like you have to value Stroud for what he's valued at now. And 500 in the analyzer, it's a lot. That's still a lot of value. But a lot of likely scenarios having to be what they are, I just stick with Stroud here. If there were any, like, of course, there's no reliable word on anything that goes on in the NFL, but if there was anything that could make me feel better about the Kyler Murray situation, maybe.
Mhm.
Like if he was practicing, if the team said, "Hey, we like Kyler," even as a person, I would feel much better about it. Like, but like, there's absolutely nothing going on with Kyler right now, and like, I'd be worried that he does get shelved. His value goes in some weird limbo, and then we go into the next non-point scoring season with him still being in limbo, and it's just like I didn't cash out on this. I gave myself a headache, and that's not. Oh, I don't like that. So again, that's a very personal thing. That's the way I play. So I hang on to Stroud for this. Like if that was another quarterback around that area of, hold on, let me pull up.
Watson.
Well, that's just the wrong name for me.
That well, I'm just saying, like, that's like it kind of goes to show that there are like when you replace Kyler with other quarterbacks in Kyler's value range right now, I think it becomes more obvious that this answer is CJ Stroud.
What about Justin Fields?
I would take Stroud.
Okay.
I mean, I was taking Kyler over Stroud or Kyler over Fields before.
Oh, right. We did
So
talk about
that's
that. Yeah, because then we start scrolling up and we get too high up.
yeah. Or you get to like if it was Tua in a first, you're taking Tua in a first. If it's Lawrence in a first, you're taking that. And then but if it's Kyler, Dak, Watson, Fields, then you get to like Bryce Young and Kirk Cousins, like it's
Bryce Young is still higher in the analyzer, by the way.
then Stroud.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, I believe that because he was higher coming into the
I'm not
season.
giving up on Young, by the way, just because he's not doing what Stroud is doing. I still believe that Bryce Young will be a good NFL quarterback. Just
I agree.
saying that
Yeah.
out loud.
This really does come down to how you feel about Kyler Murray. Like I
Yeah, which
because
is
I do
always
think
me.
that there's a world out there where if Kyler Murray was healthy right now and if he was playing, these two would be very similarly valued, because Kyler would still be
So,
doing top 12 things, I think, as well.
yeah.
And so then to say, well, if these two quarterbacks are basically almost identical in value, adding that mid first, and I looked up the dude's team and he's ninth in points for right now. And, if that continues to trend down that way, we could be looking at a top four, top five pick. You could be getting Bowers or Ibuka or Coleman or Malik Neighbors. Like that's like a free top five rookie asset for a very similar quarterback. So I definitely do think that there's a world where Kyler is the only quarterback in that value range where this trade makes sense to do,
Yeah.
but it is really risky at the same time because there is that risk of Kyler ascending because he's playing again and playing well and being Kyler Murray. But then there's a risk of, like you said, like he gets shelved for a year. Maybe he's on a new team next year. Maybe he's not as good because he's coming back from an injury, doesn't run as much. There is that, like the Deshaun Watson kind of stuff where people were hopeful that he would return to Texans form. Hasn't. Now it looks like you're kind of stuck with him and you would trade Watson in a first for CJ Stroud. That world is just as real for Kyler Murray in a year.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining along on another journey of the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Russ Fisher at Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes at Amaze Hayes _. We'll catch you next time.